Genshin Impact is one of those games that it's a goodie but an oldie. Today I want to go ahead and talk about why I stopped playing Genshin Impact. Hello everyone, my name's Lunar, but you can call me Lux, and welcome to the channel. I know a lot of people have their own reasons as to why they quit a certain game. Maybe they grew up out of it, or the designs weren't hitting, or the stories just simply wasn't it. But I wanted to go ahead and just talk about why I stopped playing Genshin altogether. Now, in order for me to even talk about this and break it down for you guys, I have to go ahead and start from the very beginning, back in 2020. Genshin Impact is an open world RPG filled with various different characters and rich storytelling. Even though I didn't play Genshin Impact for long, I can remember back in 2020 when it was still around COVID season and there was really not much to do. A lot of people were stuck at home, and I saw a YouTube video of a playthrough of Genshin Impact and I was immediately hooked. I was instantly hooked on the characters, the story, and the overall combat system in Genshin Impact. And that was honestly my introduction to gacha games all in general. Despite Genshin having an open world for you to explore, interesting characters and backstories, it was still lacking a little bit for me. The main reason why I stopped playing Genshin in the first place was honestly because it just wasn't as interesting to me as it was back when I first started it in 2020. The characters, in my opinion, I feel like have gotten a lot better. I feel like some of them definitely have a backstory to them, while others are really just for fan servicey reasons. And honestly, I'm not a hater towards like having too much fan service or having too little, because at the end of the day, they're just pixel characters. If you get that bent over backwards because of some over jiggly physics, that's more of a you problem and not so much as a game issue, because that really just means you're only paying attention to that and that alone. But I remember back then playing Genshin when there was a whole bunch of grindy vibes to it, and that's with every gacha game. You have to grind for your resources to level up your characters or to level up your weapons or artifacts and such, and Genshin is no different from the rest of the gacha games around the world. But I feel like for the grindy system, it's like you're not getting as much as you would if you spend like 3-4 hours a day in the game. You would be getting less than what you're actually putting in effort for, which to me, I'm not a huge fan about. Don't get me wrong, I love a good game that allows you to grind for your resources and materials and actually work for what you need to earn and get for your characters. But at the same time, working and grinding for so long and not getting what you're trying to grind for, it really does feel a little underwhelming at times. And honestly, like I said, haven't played this game long enough to really get upset about the whole grindy system. But this was back when not even Wuthering Waves or any gacha game was really prevalent at the time. This was like a big name for itself, and it really held up to it in my opinion. Even though Genshin Impact has a very open world, it really did feel like a closed off world. There was of course a lot of places that you could go to explore, mountains and different lakes and stuff, but it definitely felt like it wasn't an easy travel to point A to point B. Now yes, there's gliders and such that can help you get from one area to another, but I'd hate to compare Genshin Impact with Wuthering Waves. But in my opinion, Wuthering Waves just has a better exploration in my opinion. They have different ways of traversing the land with a grappling hook or that flying feature that you can unfortunately only fly in Redecita. But in Genshin Impact, it really does feel like you're only limited to go to certain spots and that's about it. I tried to play Genshin Impact back in 2024 just to see what the game was up to, and to be honest, I don't know, I just didn't feel that attached to it. And I'm not going to really talk about the story and the pacing of it, because honestly with every gacha game, I'm never really focused on the story plot. I'm mostly focused on the combat and the characters and their little backstories as well. I know you'll learn some of their backstories through their stories or different lore hidden around the world. For me personally, Genshin Impact's story never really impacted me in a way that it should. Maybe it's because most of the dialogue was just repeating what's been said already in different words and different fonts. For instance, they could be saying one thing and then later on down the line, they can repeat the exact same thing, but in a different word or wording it differently. And it's like, okay, we get the plot, we get the idea. And again, the story is honestly just a me thing. I'm not personally interested in the whole story or the whole whole lore of Genshin Impact. And maybe if I cared a little bit more about the story and Genshin Impact in a whole, I'd probably be more inclined to play the game to this day. Another major setback for me, and again, this is a me thing, is that there is no skip button. Sometimes the stories, especially the side quests that have absolutely nothing to do with the main story, they're just side quests to help you get some XP or some extra relics or something like that. And it's like the side stories be longer than the main stories, especially if it has nothing to do with it. I wish they would implement a skip button. Another one of Hoyo's games, which is ZZZ, aka Zenless Zone Zero, which came out way after Genshin Impact was released, and they have a skip button, and I abused the heck out of that skip button, I'm not gonna lie. But sometimes the story is just not interesting enough, and it doesn't really pertain to the main story, therefore why should I care about it? Unless it's a character that I really resonate with and want to get to know better, then maybe, but at the same time, you really have to lock me in the first 5 seconds or I'm skipping. So now I'm just sitting up here mashing buttons until I lose my mind. Now, I don't want to just talk about all the things of why I don't play Genshin Impact now. Genshin Impact is not for everyone, and I know there's still a lot of people to this day who still play the game despite all of these flaws that I've pointed out already that I personally don't like, but again, these are just my own opinions. Genshin really does thrive, in my opinion, when it comes to the amount of exploration. Despite it feeling very limited for me, there's still a lot to see and a lot to explore. There's different worlds, the characters that you get to meet with different quirks. I definitely like how each character is not exactly the same as others. Even if they do share the same element, each character has their own rich backstory that I can really get with. Especially like the very sad, depressing ones, it makes me feel a lot more connected characters when I know they had it rough growing up. And then you have the fun characters that are supposed to be lighthearted and to keep the story more interesting, such as like Paimon. I'm not gonna lie, I don't like that flying little fairy. She honestly is so useless to me. All she really does is trying to be our quote-unquote guide that we never really asked for, but she's so useless in my opinion. Out of all of the small flying little creatures in gacha games, Paimon has to be by far the most useless one. And I'm sorry if I'm hitting on Paimon too much, it's just that little baby thing, whatever, that floats around you every chance she gets. It's just, I don't know, but I'm getting off topic. I like how Genshin is a free-to-play game to a certain extent. It's like you can play until you're level 5, but then after that you'll have to pay, kind of vibes. And at some point, I don't know exactly if you can beat end game content with just the free-to-play characters to beat it, but after a while, even though you don't have to, it starts to feel like you're forced to spend money on it to further progress your account. Obviously, that's not always the case. Some people are truly just free-to-play warriors, which I have to give them props where props is due, because at some point, it gets to a point where it's just like, how am I supposed to complete A, B, and C if I don't have the necessary equipment to complete A, B, and C? And that's where I feel like Genshin really lacks for me. In other gacha games, again, like Wuthering Waves or Honkai Star Rail, you don't necessarily need to buy anything in the game to complete endgame content, and you earn quite a bit of stuff from just doing your dailies or something like that to earn Stellar Jades or Wave Planks or something like that. Spending money on any game really should be a choice, not an ultimatum. It shouldn't feel like you have to get these characters in order to complete or fulfill an in-game requirement. Spending money on a game shows your support for the game and future development of it. And the only money that I'm willing to spend on a game in general is ones that I feel like it's worth the money and time to give them that money. Now, I'm not sure if I should speak on this too much on the updates in Genshin. I'm not sure how often they have updates in the game. I know currently it's the anniversary and everything, and they're supposed to be having free stuff and free pulls and such, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot to do for the anniversaries. I mean, the anniversaries, in my opinion, for a game is to celebrate how far the game has come and how much has grown over the years, and it's supposed to be like a big birthday bash in a way, to really thank the players for coming on and playing the game and being actively interested in the game. So I don't want to speak on that too much, just in case if I may get anything wrong. I don't want you guys to take this as factuals or anything. A major part of why I stopped playing Genshin was the gacha system. Honestly, it's the same with every gacha game. they have a gacha system that is a word or term for gambling, basically in-game gambling. The only difference with in-game gambling rather than real life gambling is basically where after a certain amount of pulls, you guarantee the character. You get it or you don't. And I like how in every gacha game that system is in place, where they have the pity system, so that way the game after a certain amount of pulls will pity you into giving you whatever character that you're trying to pull for. And at some point it does feel kind of draining for Genshin when it comes to pulling a character and you don't get the character after the, say, 90 pulls you pulled for that character. I don't know how many pulls it takes to guarantee that 5-star character that you're trying to pull. I haven't checked in a while, but I know the gacha system is a big part of Genshin and is a big part of its player base. And that's what makes Genshin Impact. I just feel like it can be a little underwhelming when you've been saving up for a character. Mind you, you don't get a lot of pulls to begin with to pull for the character that you want to get. So now you're forced to spend that money to get that character before they have to go until their next rerun banner. It really is a 50-50. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. You either wait until you can have enough pulls to pull for the character that you're trying to get, or you wait for their next rerun banner and save up, which I know can be a source for frustration for many, me included. With every gacha game, it can be really frustrating when you don't get the character in the first few pulls that you wanted to get them in, which is kind of to be expected. But at the same time, it leads to some players not wanting to play or any kind of discouragement. Now, despite me saying all the things that I don't like about Genshin and why I quit, I definitely feel like Genshin still has a lot of potential. Again, even though I don't play Genshin Impact, I still play a lot of other gacha games that I've mentioned already, like Wuthering Waves, Honkai Star Rail, which is another Hoyo game, which despite having the same company produce that game, there's a whole new spin on it, in my opinion, where it's a turn-based RPG. And for some reason, I feel more invested in Honkai Star Rail a lot more than Genshin Impact. I'm not exactly sure why, but maybe it's because of the character designs or just the whole turn-based system in general. It's very different from the usual open world exploration. And then you have Wuthering Waves, where it's like Genshin Impact, where you have the open world to explore, but there's different ways to traverse the land, and there's a skip button if you don't want to go through the whole story. Like, why is there not a skip button? I'm not understanding. I mean, I can understand not having a skip button because you want your players to be invested in the story, but if the story is already kind of boring and lackluster, people are going to want to skip. You have to update your story so that people won't feel the need to skip, because if I have to skip looking for that skip button, that means your story is either boring, not engaging, it's not catching me, or it's not giving me the necessary hooks that I need to be hooked onto the story. But enough with all that talk. Let me know down below your guys' thoughts and opinions on Genshin Impact and why you may or may not have stopped or continued playing. Maybe I'll give it another chance in the future, but as of right now, I can't see myself playing it again. It's just not my cup of tea personally, and that's completely fine. Everybody has their own opinions on a lot of different reasons, and I don't really want to start an argument in the comment section, so please let me know down below your thoughts and opinions in a kind and respectful manner. And thank you guys so much for watching. Bye everyone.